Imagine waking up in the morning, instead of feeling refreshed, you're exhausted, like you haven't slept at all. Your joints are stiff and you're in pain. For 1% of the population, that's almost 8,000 people in Glasgow who live with the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. This is a daily occurrence. So what is rheumatoid arthritis? It is the most prevalent inflammatory arthritis, where basically your immune system begins to recognise your own body as an intruder, in this case your joints, and it attacks them. So immune cells will start to infiltrate into the joint, and that will cause redness, swelling and pain. And thanks to the last 30 years of research, we have new treatments that have been very successful. However, 40% of patients still are not responding to treatment. And in these patients, they have long-lasting, uncontrolled inflammation, which will eventually lead to irreversible joint damage in the form of bone erosion, which we can see here in this X-ray. So the white is solid bone, and here we have a dark patch that shouldn't be there. That's bone erosion. And because this is irreversible, the patient will live with it forever. And it causes deformity in their joints, meaning they can't move them in the same way, they can't use these joints anymore. So it's imperative that we control the bone erosion before it occurs. Our research is looking at understanding the mechanisms of how inflammatory bone erosion occurs so that we can then inform drug discovery and hopefully prevent this from happening again in patients. So here on the slide I've got a picture of some cells. These large purple osteoclasts are the primary cells that cause the bone erosion in this case here. They're so large because they're made by the fusion of smaller immune cells, which are also in this image, these small purple cells. So these immune cells are called monocytes, and they're one of the immune cells that is trafficked into the joint during inflammation. When these cells reach the bone, they begin to fuse together to form these giant osteoclasts. The osteoclasts will then sit on top of the bone and secrete acidic peptides, which will then erode the bone underneath them. This process of osteoclast formation is out of control in inflammatory arthritis. Our research is looking at one specific pathway that we know is involved in inflammation and in bone biology, and that's called PAR2. And in order to understand how PAR2 is playing a role in osteoclast formation, we are using monocytes from something called a PAR2 knockout. That means that these monocytes do not express the PAR2 pathway. Using these cells, we can understand how the monocytes and osteoclasts will behave differently when they don't express this pathway. We hope that our research in the future will prevent these overactive osteoclasts from eating away at our patients' mobility. Thank you.